1:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Catherine Pereira and read by Geethanjali Ramanayaka. The headlines. The President says in Parliament that the presidential election and the parliamentary election will be held next year. The third reading of the budget is being held in Parliament. 1,700 teachers are to be recruited for the national schools. Measures will be taken to evacuate people from the Peradeniya town and from other landslide warning areas in the district. Debt deal between Sri Lanka and China, a positive step forward, says the IMF. Foreign news, North Korea claims successful launch of spy satellite after prior failures. News in detail. The third reading of the budget is being held in Parliament. The votes on accounts on 25 institutions, including the Prime Minister's office, judges of high courts, and the office of the Cabinet, will be taken up for debate. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the presidential election and the parliamentary election will both be held next year, and neither of the elections will be postponed. He stated this while delivering a special statement in Parliament today regarding several matters, including the existing cricket crisis. He said that the government has established democracy in this country. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa said that his party is representing the democracy of the common people. He also stated that the country cannot move forward without a clear mandate. The Parliament met at 9:30 this morning. Answering to a question raised by parliamentarian Mohammed Muzammil, Minister Susil Premajayantha said that there is a shortage of 40,000 teachers in the education network. 1,700 teachers are to be recruited for the national schools. The relevant Gazette notification in this regard has already been issued. In addition, interviews are being conducted to recruit 4,000 graduates to the schools of the Western Province. Parliamentarian Muzammil has inquired about the measures to be taken to conduct the GCE ordinary level examination in grade 10. In reply, the Education Minister stated that children who complete 4 years of age should be directed for preschool. A program has been prepared by the National Education Institute in this regard. Assistant Director of Disaster Management in the Kandy District, Indika Ranavira, says that measures will be taken to evacuate people from the Peradeniya town and from landslide warning areas in the district. 2 business locations have been damaged completely due to the landslides which occurred in the area last night. Meanwhile, the upcountry train services were disrupted this morning due to the collapse of an earth mound on the railway track between Ohia and Idalgasina stations, the railway department said. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena has engaged in an observation tour at the Kottawa Athurugiriya interchange this morning to look into the transportation activities at the highways after the All Island Expressway Workers Union initiated token strike this morning. Therefore, issuing of tickets at the expressway is being carried out by the Army and the Navy. The agreement reached between Sri Lanka and the Export-Import Bank of China, Exim Bank, is a positive step forward in the island nation's debt restructuring process, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, says. Commenting in this regard, IMF Senior Mission Chief Peter Brewer said the global lender stands ready to move forward with the first program review as soon as financing assurances from all official creditors are in place. On October 11, the Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policies announced that Sri Lanka has reached an agreement on the key principles and indicative terms of a debt treatment with Exim Bank of China. The Minister also mentioned that the agreement in principle covers approximately $4.2 billion of outstanding debt. And that ends local news for now.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatma.
A joint operation by the Sri Lanka Customs Narcotics Control Unit and the Katunayaka Air Cargo Terminal Customs Office seized a stock of 10.5 kilograms of heroin worth 270 million rupees, the Sri Lanka Customs spokesman said. The heroin stock has been brought into the country from Lahore, Pakistan. The The stock packed in several bath towels was found in the Katnayaka Air Cargo Terminal. The parcel was addressed to a businessman in Tiharia. 2 suspects who came to the customs office to clear the goods were taken into custody. The stock of heroin and the suspects were handed over to the Police Narcotics Bureau for further investigations. And that was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
On to Watchlight this afternoon. Earth slips prompted by the prevailing adverse weather conditions have blocked several main roads across the country. According to the Disaster Management Centre, vehicular movement on the Badulla-Colombo main road remains completely hampered at the Silagama area in Balangoda after an earth slip that occurred last evening. Meanwhile, the traffic on the Passara-Namanukula road leading to Alla has been blocked by mounds of earth that collapsed onto the road after the heavy rainfall pounded the area between the 16th and 20th mile posts. And that came to you in Watchlight. On to world news. In the headlines, North Korea claims successful launch of spy satellite after prior failures. Dutch elections, voters choose new leaders in neck-and-neck race. And Israel's cabinet approves deal to release hostages during pause in fighting. North Korea claims it has successfully put a military spy satellite into space after 2 earlier attempts failed this year. It comes after a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un in September, where Moscow offered Pyongyang help with its space program. South Korea says it has not confirmed yet if the satellite is operational. But it says it believes the North received help from Russia. Following the launch, North Korea announced it would resume surveillance along its border with the North, thereby taking steps to suspend parts of a deal agreed by the 2 countries in 2018 aimed at lowering military tensions. 4 parties have emerged as front-runners as Dutch voters decide today who will lead their country into a new political era. Voting starts this morning and the polls suggest a neck-and-neck race. Centre-right leader Dylan Jechilgos is tipped to win and become the first female Dutch Prime Minister, but she is in a tight race with anti-Islam populist Geert Wilders and a left alliance led by former top-ranking EU Commissioner Frans Timmermans. More than 13 million Dutch voters have a choice of 26 parties to vote for on Wednesday, and as many as 17 could win seats. Israel's cabinet has approved a deal with Hamas to secure the release of 50 hostages being held in Gaza. The hostages will be released over a 4-day pause in fighting, a statement from the Israeli Prime Minister's office says. Under the deal, the release of every additional 10 hostages will extend the pause in fighting by 1 day. The deal was approved by Israel's cabinet after a lengthy meeting that ran into early hours of today. Before the meeting, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the war effort would continue even if a hostage agreement was struck. Back to the headlines of the world news. North Korea claims successful launch of spy satellite after prior failures. Dutch election, voters choose new leaders in neck-and-neck race, and Israel's cabinet approves deal to release hostages during pause in fighting. And that ends world news.
Development news.
Uduvila Mahaväylä will be developed by the Department of Irrigation. Nearly 20 million rupees has been allocated in this regard. Water supply will be provided to 350 acres of paddy land by implementing this project. And that was development news.
Moving on with sports news.
The International Cricket Council has moved the Under-19 World Cup to South Africa from Sri Lanka. The ICC board also decided that the Sri Lanka team will continue to play international cricket despite the suspension of SLC. Football Sri Lanka will host the 2024 edition of the South Asian Football Federation Cup Under-20 Men's Football Tournament next year in Sri Lanka. FSL will conduct this tournament in August at the Sugidasa Stadium or at the Racecourse Grounds in Colombo. The decision was taken by FSL Executive Committee and it has already been submitted to the SAFF Executive Committee and will be approved by SAFF authorities during the FIFA Club and World Cup football tournament to be held in Saudi Arabia in December. And that was sports news.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න as වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The Sri Lanka Convention Bureau is pleased to announce the Jaffna Mice Expo 2023 scheduled from the 30th of November to December 3rd, 2023. The event is designed to showcase the Northern Province as a promising destination for meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions on mice, while also providing mice agents and media personnel from South India with an opportunity to explore its potential. After the successful Mice Expo in Colombo earlier this year, the Northern Province was identified as a promising destination for business, tourism, with a focus on markets with the South India region that share similar cultural affinity. And that was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න as වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
On to economic news. Facets Sri Lanka 2024, Asia's leading gem and jewellery exhibition, organised by the Sri Lanka Gem and Jewellery Association, is proud to announce the unveiling of the country's first ever sustainability pavilion. The groundbreaking initiative is set to captivate and educate visitors from around the world, offering a unique glimpse into the rich history of the Sri Lankan gem industry and its modern commitment to ethical practices, responsible sourcing and community engagement. And that was economic news.
Weather report.
A further enhancement of the prevailing showery condition over the island is expected today. Showers or thundershowers will occur in most provinces of the island after 1 p.m. Heavy showers about 100 millimeters are likely at some places in the central, Sabaragama western, northwestern, north central and Uva provinces. Showers may occur at some places in the northern and eastern provinces during the morning too. And that was the weather report. Prior to concluding this news broadcast, the headlines once again. The President says in Parliament that the presidential election and the parliamentary election will be held next year. The third reading of the budget is being held in Parliament. 1,700 teachers are to be recruited for the national schools. Measures will be taken to evacuate people from the Peradeniya town and from other landslide warning areas in the district. Debt deal between Sri Lanka and China, a positive step forward, says the IMF. Foreign news, North Korea claims successful launch of spy satellite after prior failures. And with that, we end this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation and handing over the microphone back to Satya on the other side to keep you entertained this Wednesday afternoon. Over to you, Satya.